Ashland has been growing fast, and over the last few episodes, you've had a lot of great feedback. So today, we're doing things a little bit different. We're going to take a step back, not to slow down, but to refine. This episode is all about implementing your suggestions and feedback. Alright, welcome back to Ashland. First things first, if I butcher anyone's name, feel free to make me feel bad in the comments. I'll make sure I feel extra bad. But starting with Louis Louvet, IC4YM, they said, I think you should add transit connections to the outside cities. I completely agree. The reason we didn't do it in episode 10 was because we only had one bus depot. I was trying to be strategic with our number of buses, and I figured if we did add a bus connection, it would probably eat up an insane amount of buses. So to get started, we need to add in our extra platforms, and it looks like there's a conflict, so we'll just enable anarchy. Then we'll add it in. Now we'll set up an external connection to Mendon, then come right back to our bus station, and we're ready to go. Now let's open this line, change the name, the color, the ticket price, and the number of buses. And I guess we'll just call it Ashland to Mendon, but we should probably add our transit department's name, and that's an insane amount of vehicles. Oh, that sucks. We'll actually keep the ticket price the same, just because it doesn't make sense to keep it any cheaper. This isn't an inner city bus, so we're not going to lower the price. Alright, this next one comes from Mr. Cork 1. It's less of feedback and more of a tip. They said with manipulation mode, you can force segments of the hedge to a desired height. Honestly, I'm surprised I didn't try this. I must have been in the moment or something, but let's take a look and see. Alright, I had to do a bit of fighting with it just to get this little node to pop up, but I finally did get it. Now let's take a spin around and see how it looks, and it looks like we are breaking physics. Okay, so we'll give it another adjustment. And that looks pretty solid from this side, so I'm wondering how it looks from the other side. Just barely peeking up, just barely breaking physics. We could accept it, but I don't think we're going to. We'll just try and push it down just a little bit more. It's funny because no one would see this, ever. But I would know that it's there and it would still bug me. This hedge has been bugging me for the longest time. But I think that's pretty solid and I'm willing to accept that. Yeah, I'm willing to accept that. Alright, next up is also in Lithia Gardens and it comes from HKM2142. They said, you should add a few gazebos around the pond, that would be perfect. You know what, I agree. The only reason I didn't was because the terrain is a bit steep near the water and the gazebos don't actually conform, which I mean makes sense. Why would they conform? What that means is we need to do a bit of terraforming, and I still like the idea of it being a hill, but let's give this a shot by dropping this path right here down just a bit. Okay, the path definitely looks better, but that's not going to make a meaningful difference. And I'll show you what I mean. If we bring it down over here, it's up just the slightest bit. We could rotate it, but I'm not going to do that. So we'll add them in over here, and then we'll just add in a little bit of grass around it, just to break up the manicured grass texture. Alright, and that should be enough. I don't want to add too many because I don't want it to be overwhelming, but I do think it adds just enough without being overwhelming. Now we're just going to delete these plants right here, and then we'll add in a few surfaces, and we'll do this for each gazebo. And this one looks just a bit off, so let's move this. We'll try and lower it as well. And yeah, that sinks into the ground. Honestly, you could probably live with that if you didn't look too closely. But I think we can just do a tiny bit of terraforming. As long as I don't mess with the hill, I'm pretty happy. Let's try this out. And I think that right there is pretty acceptable. And yeah, you know what? I think that's a pretty solid improvement. Also, I'm really happy with how many people are using the park. When I first made it, I was scared that pretty much no one was going to use it and it would just sit empty. But pretty happy with it. Lots of foot traffic. All right, third suggestion comes from Oliver Fishburne, LC8BZ, and they recommend that we add a bus connection into Lithia Gardens because the elderly are more likely to use public transport because they don't drive as much. And I completely agree. I feel like this is a critical thing that was missed in that episode. Well, I guess the key thing was that this isn't exactly an elderly retirement area. It's more of a wealthy retiree area, but still, they will be getting old here, so it does make sense. I was thinking we could either add it here, but I really don't want to send it in, or we could send it along this road, but then the access is pretty weak. We could add one maybe right here. Yeah, I think that's a good spot. And then let's also add one up here, and then we'll also fix the housing. I don't know what's going on over there. Before we fix the housing, let's just break this node and then add some trees into the road so that the bus stop isn't so long. There we go, looking way, way better. Now I want to add a path connection between that road and the bus stop as well. We'll also probably add one more house in, so we're going to do the most realistic thing ever. Because we need to add a path, we're going to move your house. Alright, next comes from Rectangle Head 2716. The reason why they keep changing tracks is because you have tram stops on different sides of the tracks. They should all be on one side. Last thing, you should have a tram line with a couple of stops going up to Lithia Gardens for tourism. I'll consider the bus stop to be the tourism, and for the tram tracks, I'm not sure if that's the problem. So if we take a look at the line, when I try and move it over, it just wants to reverse around. But all the tram stops are definitely on the left side. And even when I do this one, so that tram stop is on the left side and we move it over to the left, it still wants to do some weird stuff. So we can straighten this one out. I wonder what's the difference between this one and that one. And right here too. See, even if we just pull it right ahead, it wants to turn around. So the only thing different about the one that let me straighten it out was there was a tram stop that wasn't being used after the stop that was being used. So that leads me to believe that maybe it's to do with this grass and the trees right here. Okay, so now it works, but that's just going into the track. But it is turning into the right lane, and it's not attached to the stop either. Weird. So it has to do with the stops then. I think the stops might be breaking up the nodes, and that's what's allowing it to turn. That doesn't make sense to me. I've done trams tons of times and I've never had this problem. So it's definitely just the road builder and the custom road. Now see, here it is again. Now let's place a stop. And then let's add the stop in. And so we still can't connect in there. So let's add a third tram sign and let's add it in. And boom, now we can go straight again. But we can't go straight there. So now let's add in another tram sign. And look, it straightened itself out all its own. That is the weirdest thing. And right here too. So let me guess, if we add another tram sign right about here, yeah, it automatically straightens itself out. So this is just an issue with the road, it seems. This next one goes out to MK Mitten 65. They said, that's a lot of tram stops. I'd maybe have 1/3 or 1/4. And I completely agree. But instead of listening, what I did instead was pretty much quadruple them. No, I'm just joking. That's just for the to fix the road. I think we'll have to change that in the future, but I completely agree with what they're saying. So first things first, let's drop these number of trams down to 4, and we're going to reduce some stops. We've already removed 1. I'm not going to remove too many, but before this episode, they were stopping every 200 meters, which is ridiculous. I was trying to maximize the connectivity from the trams and the pedestrianness, and I went way, 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 way overboard, and I'm going to tone it down. I'm going to try and aim for 8 stops if I can, just because I still want this to hit pretty much all the key spots. Right now in total, I've reduced it by 4 stops, but I've also stretched the stops further apart from each other. The big reason why there's so many stops is because right in a row, we have the bus stop and the tram stop. Then we have the high school, which has a tram stop, the college, which has a tram stop, and the elementary school, which has a tram stop. If we were to reduce some of them, I feel like we're arbitrarily removing connectivity just to shorten the line. So I'm not going to. But I do think this is a massive improvement, and the math is still silly. There's a stop every 300 meters approximately, so it's still a bit rough, but I hope you can at least give me some slack for the improvements that I did make. Leonardo Moody 4700 said they saw a video a while back where they painted a colored surface over the tram line. It looks good because it distinguishes the tram line from the roads and adds a bit of color to the city. Kind of like the pedestrian paths, or the bike paths, sorry, that we did in Claywood. I love the idea, and I was thinking of doing something similar, but I wasn't sure if it'd work out, and that's only because of the terrain right here. So you can see that if I add it in, it just stretches really, really weird. It was the same thing in Claywood with the bike path. The only way to fix this is to push the terrain over, because unless you have really wide sidewalks, what happens is the little bumps in the water start to show and it looks really bad. But I do think there is a way we can work with this. So let's start by doing a bit of grading. Okay, and I tried to clean up the bumps from the water as much as I possibly could. We'll see if it works. I think overall it's going to look nice at the end. It's just getting to the end that can be a bit frustrating sometimes. So I'm going to start by drawing in a few surfaces, a few different colors. Maybe we can just vote on a color, because I honestly don't know. We could do yellow, we could do blue, or we could just even do a net lane. Or we could do a net lane and a surface. Now we're talking. Now this might not be in the spirit of what you had in mind, but I do like it because it does have a kind of brown and oldie looking color to it. It almost feels like it's been here for a longer time. And because the city is meant to be a bit older than the rest of the city, I do like it. I'm tempted to say we could throw this down, and on the sides we could have yellow or white or even a different net lane. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to add this in. And right here, for some reason, it doesn't like the terrain, so I think I might have to change it. If we do it small bits and pieces, we can get it to look decent until we get to right about here. And even if I try and use move it to bump it up, it doesn't work. So we'll have to push the terrain back just a bit. All right, let's try this one more time. Please work. And that looks good to me. Okay, so now we'll go in, we'll add this all the way around. If we face the same problem, we'll just push the terrain back. And if I'm not placing it straight, it's because I'm going to use move it. And we are done. And I just love the way it looks. I'm really tempted to add in this yellow around it as well. I'd have to do a bit more terraforming, and that would be fun to say the least. But I am tempted to add it in. Like it could be white, it could be blue, it could be yellow. I really don't know. Or we could just get rid of it. I don't know. I'll let you guys decide. You tell me what I should add here. Alright, now last but not least, rectangle head 2716. says, just around the Claywood bus station there's be some high rises signifying it's the center. I do agree, but I want to be careful with this because I don't want to start pushing down a whole bunch of high density. I see this being very dense in 10 or 15 episodes, but I do think there can be an improvement here, and I'm going to start with this little lot. So we'll place some high density, and we're looking for a lot depth of 3, and I imagine we don't want too high of a level because the building will be too tall. That one doesn't work. That one just looks kind of eh. That one's way too wide. I love that building, but it's way too wide for this area. This one fits pretty good, I think. Now, could we throw in one of these is the question. Probably not. Right there. Yeah, that one's perfect too. It's just kind of small enough, not too wide. And what else do we have? I think that one can definitely go on that side instead. It definitely fits the area a little bit better. And then what can go in the middle here? What can go in the middle? Oh yeah, that's massive. That right there works perfectly. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So we have these 3 dense buildings. We have one fairly wide one somewhat tall, and then one not so tall. And that's just the most awful way to describe these 3 buildings that I've ever heard in my entire life. But overall, these are the buildings I'm going to choose. They still feel like they could actually exist here. I really love this surface. I really love this, especially with these buildings. With these buildings, it works perfectly. Is that a garage, though, I'm wondering? Because if it's a garage, no, it's a door. Okay. If it was a garage, then we wouldn't have ran surface in. Well, we won't run the surface in anyways because we accidentally got rid of the building, and I honestly have no clue which one it was. I can't remember. The southwestern one just feels so massive. I'm wondering, is it the tallest building in the entire city? So this is the tallest building in the city, and they're pretty much equal height, which means I'm gonna keep this. I think it can fit. Let's finish up the detailing. Alright, and that is a wrap. Keep the suggestions coming. I'm always happy to implement them. I love getting the feedback because really it turns the city into something better than what I could create on my own, and I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next one.